Well, welcome to the Sunday Mass. You know, over the years, I have shared with you that I grew up in Brooklyn in a three-room apartment house and a four-story walk-up. And I guess now they would call that density of population. There were an awful lot of people of us in that neighborhood and in those apartment buildings. And well, you grew up fast. You got to know everybody and everything. You were in absolutely everybody's business. People watched out for each other. They took care of each other. We were a lot in that apartment house of essential workers. My father worked for the electric company, Con Edison. There were firemen, post office people, people who worked in hospitals, a working class neighborhood. And I don't know if you remember from the Honeymooners, you know, Jackie Gleason and Art Carney. And all of a sudden, every once in a while, Jackie Gleason would open up the window and he would shout out, you know, to the neighbors above. He would say, you know, Norton, Norton. And then Norton would run down. Well, we had a guy like that in our apartment on the first floor. We used to call him Mad Mike. And I guess, you know, people got in fights. They were noisy. The kids were running around, you know, maybe parties in one apartment or another. And Mike would always put up the window and say, give it a rest, will ya? And shout out, give it a rest, will ya? And of course, we kids, you know, being kids, we would taunt him. You know, we'd make a lot of noise, so we would open it up and say, give it a rest, will ya? I have no idea why, but I was thinking of Mad Mike when I was reflecting on the gospel for this morning, where Jesus says, come to me, and I'll give you a rest. You know, the people in those days, they were, well, burdened, I guess, by the rules and regulations of religion. They were wanderers, they were poor. You know, where are we going? Is there a Messiah going to come? You know, maybe not unlike some of the questions we might have or have had during this pandemic, this virus, this beast, you know, that we're going through. You know, maybe our lives, like theirs, have had a certain amount of loss, you know, maybe of a job or somebody we love. You know, deep down inside, it can be a very unsettling kind of time. And yet Jesus, to the people of his day, through some of the same fears, and maybe to us today who are being told, you know, don't touch and stay away, and when we long for the intimacy of a hug or a touch or even just a visit if you're alone in a hospital or a nursing home, or if you have this disease yourself. And Jesus comes and, well, it's a lot different than Mad Mike, who says, give it a rest, will ya? Jesus comes and says, let me give you a rest. And that rest, you know, despite everything that we might be afraid of or disoriented about, is a deep rest. You know, it's a rest that holds on to hope. It's a rest that, even though we don't know what's coming, that we're going to be taken care of deeply, deeply by a God who really, really loves us. So maybe within that hope and within that depth of trust that we might not even have realized we even have, that depth of love, maybe Jesus can say to us, let's give it a rest. Let me give you rest. Will you? Amen.
Amen.